Oh, I don't even know if this is confidential information. That same watch, if you were to go down the retail path, would take $1 million, which sounds ridiculous, but... Good morning, everyone. It's Justin here. Welcome to the JSO Club, where I take you inside my circle of luxury collectors. It's currently 8:30 in New York. Just for some context, I just graduated from Babson College, which is based in the Boston area. I started filming luxury watch content in 2024, so I'm very familiar with the luxury watch scene in Boston. So for today's video, I'm going to give you guys a complete guide to luxury watch shopping in Boston, specifically the AP, Rolex, and Patek boutiques. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Leave a comment on what video I should do next. I'm just gonna freestyle this video. A couple things before I start. I'm gonna make a few assumptions. One, I'm gonna assume that you want the most desirable pieces from each brand. So I'm gonna walk you guys through what it takes to get a GMT or a Panda Daytona from Rolex. I'm gonna walk you guys through what it takes to get a basic stainless steel Royal Oak 15510 ST. I'm very familiar with what it takes. I'm gonna walk you guys through Patek. I am not as well-versed as to what it takes for getting an Aquanaut or a Nautilus, but I do have enough insights where I think it's gonna be helpful. So that's one thing I wanted to get through. I do wanna make it very clear that everything I say, it applies to the 2024 to 2025 market. Who knows, maybe 5 to 10 years from now, Daytonas are readily available at retail, you never know. I don't think that's gonna happen, but without further ado, let's get started. Let's start with Rolex. Rolex is probably the most well-known brand out there. So the Rolex boutique is located on Newbury Street. Actually, all the boutiques are located on Newbury Street in Boston. It's owned by Long's Jewelers. And if you see my other videos, you know, but I actually picked up this watch as a first piece with Long's in 2024. I made a whole in-depth video, so if you wanna get the details, feel free to check out that video. But long story short, I put my name on the wait list, which doesn't exist, by the way. On December 2023, I got the call for this February 2024, which I am extremely grateful for. In terms of how I did it, just watch my other video. I'm actually proud to say that when I look back at that video, everything I said is accurate information, so definitely check that out. In terms of getting allocated for a Panda Daytona, which is the most desirable model in the Rolex catalog, the MSRP is $16,000. The secondary market price is around $32,000 to $35,000 for a brand new one. Because it commands such a premium, it's gonna be a hard model to get. For the Boston market, if you're an average client, and you have no relationship with the owner or anything like that, you're gonna have to spend roughly $100,000 to $150,000 before you get even considered for a Panda Daytona. For someone who doesn't understand watches, that sounds like a ridiculous number. It is very strange that you have to spend $100,000 in order to be considered for a watch that costs $16,000. But that's just the way the game is right now. The reality is that is significantly less than what you would have to spend for a more competitive market. For example, New York City. Just recently, I made an episode with someone who works with a Rolex AD in Newport Beach, California, which is an affluent area. In that AD, the average spend is around $200,000 before a Panda allocation. I do want to make a point by saying before 2020, it was very easy to get basically any model you want. GMTs were readily available at retail. Panda Daytona, from what I've heard, you probably had to wait 3 to 6 months, but it was definitely attainable. So it's just very interesting to see how the watch market has changed over the years. In terms of being allocated a GMT, that is a bit tougher to give you guys a definitive answer because different GMTs command a different premium. For example, the Rolex Pepsi, especially on Jubilee, is $11,000 MSRP, but the secondary market price goes for double that at $22,000, roughly. Whereas for my watch, MSRP is also $11,000, but the secondary market price is roughly $16,000 to $17,000. If I wanted to liquidate this watch today, I could probably get $15,000. With that being said, this effectively means that this watch is easier to get than the Pepsi. I personally believe if you have a $50,000 spend with Longs, then this watch is doable. I think a Sprite is doable. It's a lot of money, right? But in the game of Rolex, it's a full gold day date, it's and a Datejust, right? I mean, if you add that together, there you go. You have $50,000, $60,000 in purchase history. So to quickly summarize the Rolex game, you need to roughly spend around $100,000 to be considered for a Panda Daytona. My personal guess for a GMT, if you spend 30 to 50K, I mean, the gates should be open, especially if you take a bullet on a precious metal model. Happy with my Rolex answer. Let's move on to AP, which I am extremely familiar with the game. Before I get into that, let me just clarify there's a very big difference in building a relationship with an AP boutique compared to AP house. Boston does not have AP house. AP house, everything goes through AP corporate, whereas for the AP boutique, it's actually owned by a company called Material Good, which is based in New York. I actually just visited their headquarters a couple weeks ago, looking to build a relationship with the owner. We shall see. But I would say for AP house, which there's an AP house in New York City, it's extremely competitive, but bare minimum, if you're looking for a 15510 ST, especially if you don't need a blue dial, if you don't mind getting a white, black, and gray dial, you are essentially guaranteed a Royal Oak if you buy a offshore or code 1159. That is consistent with what my friends have said. I have personally picked up a black dial 15510 ST with one of my Babson friends. He got allocated in just 2 months after buying an offshore for his father. So back to AP Boston. Even if you buy a code or an offshore, Royal Oak is not guaranteed for a couple reasons. One, the boutique simply gets less allocations than an AP house. So nothing is guaranteed with the AP boutique. I am a big fan of the sales team at AP Boston. I think they are probably one of the most knowledgeable and genuinely passionate about AP. But the reality is they get so few allocations. And I'm gonna give you guys an example. I witnessed a friend of a friend picked up a rose gold blue dial chronograph on the leather strap. I forget the reference number, but I don't even know if this is confidential information. That watch, for example, they only get allocated, they said either 2 or 4 of them in a year. And just for context, AP produces around 50,000 watches a year compared to Rolex, which produces well over 1 million watches a year. So it's a whole different ballgame. And it's much more exclusive, much more selective to be allocated AP. And I'm gonna say one more thing about AP Boston Boutique. I made an episode on this. I have a very good lawyer friend who picked up the 16202 ST Jumbo, which is arguably like the watch to get from AP. He was able to get it with a $150,000 spend. And this is considered rare because if you were to do the same thing in New York, my New York friend had to spend $250,000 to be allocated a Jumbo. Long story short, Boston is a competitive market, but it's definitely easier to be allocated pieces than New York or in LA. But the only issue is the Boston boutique just doesn't get that many allocations. And I'm gonna give you guys one more insight. My lawyer friend bought a black ceramic skeleton open work AP from Timepiece Trading. They're gray market dealers, and I forget how much he picked it up for, but I'm assuming it's around $200,000 to $250,000. That same watch, if you were to go down the retail path, would take $1 million, which sounds ridiculous, but based on the data I've gathered from the Boston and New York markets. Naturally, the question is, why play the retail game? My honest opinion is, for those out there watching, if you're only looking to buy 1 or 2 APs in your lifetime, just go gray. But if you see yourself building a long-term relationship with AP, there are benefits. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about Patek. Patek is also owned by Long's Jewelers. I do not have as much insight because from what I've heard from my Boston collector friends, it is incredibly hard to build a relationship with Patek in Boston unless you spend a shit ton of money on jewelry. It's a jewelry first company. It's a family owned jewelry business. So if you want to build a relationship with Patek in Boston, it is unrealistic to play the game solely by building your Patek catalog. So usually I would say, start with the Calatrava and then, work your way up, It's just simply near impossible to do with Patek in Boston. So if you're planning to get engaged, if you have a wife that loves jewelry and you're willing to splash, that is a good avenue to go about building a relationship with Patek in Boston specifically. That's basically it. I've said a lot. I don't know how much I'm gonna cut, but leave a comment if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what I should cover next. Again, I'm very familiar with the AP game, so if you want me to make a separate video on AP, I would gladly do that. With that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. Like and subscribe, and welcome to the JZO Club.